Well, Aaron, welcome to Shotgun. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's busy time of the year at the moment with show car season and everything. We're just back from Donegal Rally there at the weekend, and it's been a good one. Thank you for having me on Shotgun.
Thank you for coming in. I'll do my very best during the interview not to be a fanboy. I can't promise anything though.
It's all good. There's no need for anyone to be a fanboy. At the end of the day, as I say to everyone, I'm still doing exactly the same thing as what I was doing before Retro Garage. Like I still have a love for cars. I'll still chat to anyone about cars every day of the week. I'm just lucky now that I get to call doing that kind of stuff my job now.
Your full-time job. Now let's chat about the S6.
Yeah, so this is my 1996 Audi S6. It's a C4 generation car. Audi didn't know what they were doing when it came to the naming structure at the time. So this was like this was like the sporty version of the first generation A6. However, the pre-facelift version of this was called an Audi 100. And funnily enough, then the sport version of the pre-facelift is called an Audi S4. So it's like you have the same car where the pre-facelift is called an S4, the post-facelift is called an S6. It's of course powered by a 5-cylinder turbo, one of my favorite engines. Yeah, so I grew up watching Group B rally videos on YouTube. Obviously, sadly, never got to experience any of that in real life. Like the car, I'm a 1996 model year as well. But yeah, always loved 5-cylinder turbos, 20-valve 5-cylinder turbos. Half my family's from Germany, so 5-cylinder turbos and old Audis are very much a big thing when it comes to kind of the tuning community, especially 90s, early 2000s over there. And yeah, for me, it started with the 20-valve Coupe Quattro, so basically this engine in naturally aspirated form, so no turbo. And that was a car I probably bought when I was like 22, 23, and that's how my Audi journey began. Since then, we've progressed a little bit. Obviously, the Audi S6 now being the latest project, and the Audi 80 Cabriolet that we got from my girlfriend, that is the latest project. Also have an Audi 80 Avant with a 16-valve engine, 2-litre 16-valve engine inside it. But of course, this is now my baby. It is incredibly comfortable to drive. Just this weekend, I had it up in Donegal Rally, and I probably did close to 700 miles, so probably about 1,000 kilometers, and it didn't miss a beat all weekend. But yeah, it's.
But you were missing the aircon, did you?
I missed the aircon. Sadly over here we have a smashed window because I think something went wrong in the window mechanism and it just dropped into the door. So apologies for all the glass on the floor.
Come on, admit you were so warm you just elbowed it.
It was all the Lexus IS 200s popping and banging near me that definitely broke the glass. But no, it was, it's a good weekend, and it's cars like this that you really realise these are made to be cruisers. This is a car that was made to be a cruiser. It was made to sit at high speeds on the autobahn. Even the dash here reads 280 kilometers an hour. And it was made to be a cruiser, and sometimes it's a bit of a shame having these cars in Ireland because we don't get to experience that at all. It's
not a car that you go to dance with. It's not a car that you just start up, go to dance, go back. It's a car for long.
It is a car for long journeys. It is incredibly fun on roads like this as well. It's an enjoyable car to drive. It drives a lot better than you might expect a car this size to drive, especially of the age. Of course, we have one negative, and that is, I guess, the automatic transmission inside in this. But again, it was built to be a cruiser. My needs are slightly different to those for a cruiser. It's brilliant having this, in the traffic in Letterkenny and not having to worry about your left foot at all. But at the same time, I do want a manual in here. It changes the way that the car sounds as it drives as well, because you don't have the you don't have that as much.
You don't have the boaty sounds.
That said, the automatic transmission in this is really quick to shift. It feels a lot quicker than the likes of some of the later Tiptronics. So this is you have to force it into 1, 2 and 3. It's incredibly quick to shift from 1 to 2, and sometimes there's a little pop and a bang and a flame out the back apparently when you shift from 1 to 2. But it's.
So are you planning a conversion or?
Definitely planning a conversion. Funny enough, our sponsor trainers actually sourced us a gearbox out of a B6 Audi A4 with a 2.5 TDI Quattro gearbox, so it should be a good bit stronger. It's a 6-speed, and yeah, they were kind enough to just gift it to us at the time, and you know, the plan is to get that in. There's a couple of bits I still need to source to be able to do all that, but the plan is hopefully during the winter that this car then comes out of like hibernation, kind of like February, March time next year, with a manual transmission in it and with a lot more enjoyable kind of driving dynamics as well. But other than that, like, you know, a lot of things in this are pretty much stock. Suspension is KWV1s. Wheels are Rotiform OZRs, and the calipers are off a Porsche Cayenne. Again, thanks to our sponsor trainers for hooking us up with those. But other than that, it's actually fairly stock, and I do like it this way.
I actually, we were talking before the cameras started rolling, I actually prefer the retro cars to be more stock.
Yeah.
I can appreciate builds, I can appreciate everything, but I prefer them as the way they should be.
I like a fine balance, to be honest. Like if I had my way with this, I would have it running probably about 350 on like a daily map, because that is completely fine for roads around here. It's more than enough.
Yeah, so just to come back to the automatic and manual, like I have a 39 BMW 525i, and it's automatic, and my daily driver is a F31 BMW 318D, and it's manual. And funny enough, the clutch was gone on the manual.
Yeah.
I was driving the E39 for 2-3 weeks now. Came back to the F31. I'm like, what's this extra pedal?
Yeah.
Like, you get so used to it in city environment not to be having to press the pedal.
You get used to it. There's obviously a lot of negativity around automatic transmissions, and I think they suit. There's a good few cars where they suit. If it was something like a Golf 4, I wouldn't even bother with a manual in them. It's like, okay, get a Golf GTI if you want to get a manual.
Mm-hmm.
Golf 4, it's just like, you know, flappy paddles. For me, I like, you know, it's nice to have a manual or auto and cruising, and like when I get back into like my daily, which is a 325i E92, I get back in and like if I'm at the end of like a motorway, I'm like, sugar, like what do I do now?
Yeah.
What do I do now? It's like my brain completely forgets that like I have to clutch in. I can't just hold the brake and wait till it changes gear down for me. Obviously, this is my first time having like my own automatic car. I've driven other people's automatic cars, some good, some bad. I had a very negative viewpoint of basically automatics from the 90s, because like everyone does, they're slush boxes, and to be honest, BMW's automatics in the 90s weren't, before they're like Tiptronic, they weren't great. Same with Mercedes, they were just very, very washy. But I've never looked at like people saying, oh, you'll miss the fact that like you can just cruise and you don't have to shift gears. But at the same time, like I've spent the last 8 years driving, 9 years, probably 8-9 years driving manual cars, and I've never once got into a manual car and been like, yeah, I miss have like I wish I didn't have this pedal, like, you know. So it's easy when I'm sitting in this to be like, oh sugar, am I gonna like ruin everything by going manual? But at the same time, I'm like, I've never thought about this before, so this car can only be better with a manual. And that's kind of where my head's at the moment, and hopefully it pays off when I do finally do it.
Well, I don't think you'll regret it. I think that if you follow what's in your head, what's in your heart,
yeah,
I think you cannot go wrong.
There'll also be other things that kind of come off it. So like, for example, when we do go manual, it's going to have a single mass flywheel, basically the same type that's in my Coupe Quattro, which will mean that I can just, like, if I blip the throttle on idle, she'll just rev straight up and she'll properly sound like a Sport Quattro, or S1E2, one of the later Quattro Group B rally cars that had the 20 valve. So she'll sound properly like that. And again, the other side of it is if I do ever go down the road of higher power, the automatic just can't handle it. Yeah. Whereas putting a you know, a modern 01E gearbox, like a 2.5 TDI box into it, that can handle high levels of torque. That's kind of where I want to be at anyway, and that's what I want to be doing. So look, we'll fingers crossed it'll work out. Fingers crossed we'll have a chat at some stage early next year when this car is manual, and I'll be like, this is the best thing ever. Otherwise I could end up hating it and be like, why the hell did I do that? I had such a nice car. And I have a habit of ruining cars, making cars that were comfortable less comfortable. Like the first few times I drove this, it was brilliant, like had the stock exhaust and everything. Now with this one, it's kind of like, the first few times when we had a different back box on it, I went on like a trip to Dublin and I was like, this is too loud, this is way too loud. It's too droney and it didn't even sound good. So thankfully we have a different back box on it now. I'm very particular sometimes when it comes to like the tuning of certain things, making sure it's right. Even though I mightn't fully understand it, I try to learn as much as possible when it comes to what to do with a back box, what to do with exhaust, and what to do with sound, what to do with like suspension. I like trying to understand and figure out as much as I possibly can. I just enjoy those kind of things,
and that's what makes you like that.
Yeah, I like, you know, when it comes to retro garage, even retro garage was an idea that was in my brain for a long time, and some people may have seen the video I did with Dean Motors Pajero Evo, like, what is that, 2018, whenever the year I bought the Coupe Quattro, which is like 5 years ago almost now. And you know, when people see like the progress, like obviously I didn't have time to do retro garage at the time. COVID hit, I moved back from London. I was still working with a marketing agency that I was with, but then look, my job ended up changing quite a bit. Had to slow down a lot. And I took a step back and I started my own thing, and retro garage was something that when I realised that like I needed to get away and do something else, retro garage was just meant to be a pastime. It was meant to keep me busy until I found my own work. I was lucky enough that some people that kind of knew what I did came to me almost immediately the week after I set up my own agency, and they came and worked with me. And then last July, then I got to this point where I had to make this decision. Like, do I keep trying to grow my marketing consulting business, or am I just doing that to help fund the cars, or do I just go full hell for leather at retro garage and try and make retro garage my full time? And you know, I've been very lucky and very fortunate that it has paid off, and just this weekend past we hit the 100k mark, which is a massive privilege. And I think, you know, from there as well, like the way I see it and the way I say it to a lot of people is I still have exactly the love for cars. Nothing's really changed in my life, really. Like, I would have been out at these shows, I would have been out at Cars and Coffee, I would have been working away at my own cars. I just get to do more of that. And I get to do more of that more regularly. Like, every day is filled with cars now, whereas before maybe once a week would have been filled with cars, or once every 2 weeks.
Well, I think it's safe to say that I can speak on behalf of all car guys in Ireland. Thank you, and thank your girlfriend as well for being so awesome and allowing you to do everything.
I'm not going to lie, I'm going to give her a lot of credit there, because she pushed me to do what I'm doing now. She built the retro garage branding that, like, you know, that everyone has come to kind of know and almost like love, which honestly fits the brand so well. I'm happy we went the direction we did at the start, because it looks period correct. And that's something I'm very big on. I like when things are period correct, but at the same time, you know, she was the one that always supported me, and it pushed me to do TikTok, even when I was like, I don't like TikTok's not a great, like, TikTok doesn't fit my aesthetic. And then I started doing TikTok, and then immediately I was like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Well, if you did it sooner, it mightn't have been the same result. So thank God you did it the way you did it, and changed nothing.
Like, the thing is, I never like to have regrets, and I'm, you know, sometimes regrets and, you know, thoughts linger in my head. But I'm trying to kind of, you know, even in terms of like mindset, work through those kind of things. At the end of the day, I'm still a kid from Kerry. You know, I'm still a kid from Kerry. I'm incredibly proud that I could do what I do, but I'm even more proud that I can do what I do at home. It would have been a lot easier to do this while living in the UK, or while I was still living in the UK. It would have been a lot easier to do this in Germany, America, you know, places where there's a market, and places where there's brands that kind of like will want to work with you, whereas like working with these sponsors and any kind of sponsorships and kind of partnership talks I've had to forge my own path, because people over here don't really do this kind of thing.
They don't understand the point of that kind of marketing.
Yeah, and they don't really do this kind of thing. And Ireland's a small country at the end of the day. But yeah, Ireland is a country I'm incredibly proud to be a part of, and it's amazing to be on, you know, the two biggest takeaways that I had from like COVID times and with lockdowns was, I love being at home. You know, I had to move home from London. Thought I was only moving home for 4 weeks, but yeah, here we are 3 years later. And B, I like cars. I really enjoy cars, and like COVID, I think for a lot of people, gave people a chance to realize what they actually care about in life and what's important to them. And for me, cars, and old school cars especially, was one of those things. It was, you know, it helped having a bit more time on my hands and not being able to go out much helped me realize that like there's so much to be said for this passion for this community, and as soon as things opened up again, like everyone was straight back out, like, you know, cars and coffee, so many events going on, and it was amazing to see, like, and seeing this kind of like change in this Irish car culture over the last 2 years has been absolutely incredible. And like, if I've played one tiny little part in that, I'm absolutely delighted. But if I haven't, you know, at the end of the day, there's part of me that's doing this for me. Like, half of me is doing this for me, and then another half is doing this for others, because it's like, you know, I've said it, I've had this conversation so many times, even over the last weekend, of like, if you're out there filming videos of cars, just put them up. They're no good on your phone. They're no good if you send them to someone on like a Snapchat that's going to disappear in 24 hours. Put it out there, let the world see it. Maybe the world mightn't always see it. Maybe the algorithm go against you. All of these things happen. But it is, at the end of the day, you know, it's something I'm really lucky to do. And, you know, I remember one quote from my grandmother years and years ago in Germany, my Oma. I remember sitting in the car, and like, I'd sit in the back of the car and I'd be able to point out anything by like headlights, taillights, any car passing. I'd be like, oh, that's a 407, or that's a Golf GTI. And in the car, I'd probably wreck their heads doing it. And she turned around to like my mom, and she was like, oh, isn't it a shame that like there's no job out there, you know, so that you can put all that knowledge to use? And I was probably 7 or 10 or something. Put all that knowledge to use, and I used to go around to like car shows in Germany, especially with my granddad, and I had this little digital camera, and I used to take photographs, and then I used to print out those photographs. I only had black and white printer. I didn't even have colour, and I found these recently of like black and white photographs of like Dodge Chargers, and they're printed out. I did them up in like PowerPoint, black and white photographs, and under it it'd be like Dodge Charger 7.1 litre RT V8, this many horsepower. And I bring them into school with me. It's like, hey, look at what I saw. Look at what I saw over the weekend. And it's funny now that like my nan at that time said, isn't it a shame that there's no job available for him to do that, in the future. And here I am, lucky enough to have carved myself and made myself a job for that, because at the end of the day, these kind of jobs don't exist. There's something you have to go out and you need to take that risk, and you need to know when to jump and when to pull back. But yeah, it's honestly like, I'm incredibly privileged to do what I do. I'm very lucky, and I'm lucky that, it's helped support, everything that comes in through Retrograde goes back into like getting to more shows and getting to more events. And I'm not gonna lie, Retrograde is not a cheap business to run. The fuel bills, you would not like to see my fuel bills. I guess it's lucky we have some kind of a bit of a partnership going on with a fuel card company. But But like at the end of the day, it's enjoyable. It's what I enjoy, and the plan is to keep going from here. And the plan is to, you know, it is something that's very grassroots. It's something that I started from scratch. I've never paid a penny of ad budget. I've never, you know, it's something that is very grassroots. What kind of, you know, some of it's funded by, like, you know, savings that I had from before, and it's something that, yeah, I'm just really, really, really lucky to do, and I hope lasts a long time. And if it doesn't, I had fun doing it. And I think others that watched and others that got to be part of it, I think they enjoyed it too.
So I'm actually surprised that I still know how to talk.
I'm so sorry. This to anyone watching, I'm sorry, because I end up being on the other side of the camera so much that, like, my brain has like a full like auto cue going on in its head, and it's like I can just talk forever. And anyone that's ever probably like met me knows that it is a shame that there's probably not like a camera always on whoever I'm talking to, because I will talk the most random stories with people for hours, and it's like I just love cars, man. I just absolutely love cars.
I was just gonna say, don't ever change. Like the passion, really, like, I can feel the passion in the air when you're talking about cars. The car glows when you start talking about cars. So don't ever change. Thank you very much for all the TikToks and all the knowledge that you're sharing around.
Man. And look, as I say, I'm still a kid from Kerry. I'm still that half German, half Irish kid from Kerry that just loved cars and always will love cars.
So having a chance to speak with a man of such knowledge and such car enthusiasm, is there anything that you would recommend for young people, any motoring events or anything?
Yeah, look, for me around Kerry, there was never really many like cars and coffees or stuff like that was very formal. For me, rallies. I've always been a fan of rallies. Obviously, you know, we have the gorgeous Miles Gap, one of my favourite roads in the country, and also one of my favourite stages to watch in the country. And we've rallies here twice a year, so we have the Rally Lakes and we have Killarney Historics Rally. And I used to cycle from my house to the start line at like 6-7 o'clock in the morning when I was a kid, because I wanted to see the rally cars. And, you know, those are the kind of memories that's like, oh, I wish I had a phone at the time. Like, young people nowadays, jeez, that makes me feel old. Like, I had a phone, don't get me wrong, I had a phone, but it was one of the ones you pushed up when I was that age. Smartphones weren't really a thing just yet. But I wish we had like the likes of TikTok and stuff like that when I was that age, because, you know, I wish I just filmed everything. I've so many photographs. Like, I still have so many photographs of, like, even, you know, there's a spot down there, and I remember I was probably about 8 years old, and I was there with my little Fujifilm camera photographing all the pictures of the cars, and I still have, like, on the dresser beside my bed, on like with a pin, I still have those photographs I printed out from like when I was 8, and they were like a Mark II Escort and a Darien rally car. And I think rallies are one of those great ways to get into it, because you're exposed to motorsport, and there's a big difference between cars and motorsport, in my opinion. And there's also a massive difference between motorsport on television versus motorsport in real life. And rally is the best example of that. Formula 1 is cool. I enjoy Formula 1, but it's not a tap on rallying for me, because rallying is based off normal car, like meant to be based off normal cars on roads that you can drive, like Miles Gap, for example. Like, you know, this is a road you can drive any time of the year, and likewise with a lot of the stages on like the WRC calendar. But yeah, I think you know, roads like Miles Gap, Knockalla and Donegal, these are iconic rally roads. Healy Pass, even, you know, probably 20 minutes, half an hour from here. These are iconic roads, and these are roads that, you know, anyone can drive any time of the year. And, you know, there's something special about rallying. There's something very grassroots about rallying. Yes, it's expensive to actually get into, but to watch, it's free. You just need to stand in a ditch all day and bring a good rain jacket and a good pair of wellies, and you get to enjoy it. And, you know, there's so many rallies throughout the whole calendar year. Rallycross is another one if you're somewhere based around like Kildare area. Drifting has obviously become really popular, but rallying, for me, rallying is where it's at. I think you form a very different love for cars through rallying, and it's that love for cars. That's maybe why my kind of like I don't get obsessed about horsepower numbers. I also actually don't get impressed by horsepower numbers, because at the end of the day it means nothing. You know, it means something to someone, the person that drives it, but if we're just watching that car, like, cool, it looks a bit crazier, it sounds a bit crazier, but like we don't get to experience that. So that horsepower, whether it's 1,000, 1,500, like whether it's a car with 1,000 horsepower or 1,500 horsepower, we can't tell the difference as a spectator, really.
Yeah.
Like, anyone could tell us anything. So I try, you know, what I love about rallying is, like, it is what it is. A lot of those cars, like the Ford Escorts, they're all naturally aspirated, so it's like, it's cool to see people push the limits, but to push the limits within limitation. And I think that's something that makes rallying quite special.
Well said. Well, I think we'll wrap it up today.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being a shotgun guest. Thank you, Tom, for editing everything. There's a lot of car noises, so thank you very much for doing all the hard work for us. We'll try to get some shots here now.
Yeah, we'll
because
do that.
the weather is absolutely unreal. Quite despite the 5 minutes ago.
It's Killarney, man. It's Killarney. It's like, we have all these mountains, and like, you know, one minute you'll have like terrible rain, and like yesterday we had floods. Today we have this, and then 10 minutes ago we had rain. And it's like, it's Killarney. It's just, it's life in Ireland. Irish car scene, one of the biggest things we always have, or Irish car culture, one of the biggest things we have to struggle with is the weather. I always wonder, if the weather was like it is in like Spain or somewhere, what would the car culture be like here? Would we constantly be out in cars and constantly be meeting up? But you know what? You can't have regrets. You can't be wishing. Let's make the most of what we have.
Let's start up the car.
We'll do that.
Cheers.
Oh, windscreen wipers are on. That's her there.
Okay.
Makes me giggle every time.